Great. So we will just go ahead and get started here. We have a very full hour, so I want to give as much time for the, all the time we need for the presentation. So we are going to get started here. So first of all, welcome everyone to the RePicture STEM Career Accelerator student final presentations. We're going to put a link here in the chat for the program for today's event. If you have trouble accessing that document, let us know. I think we have emailed it to everyone on this list. It was included in the invite, the meeting invite for today. But we've heard that some people are having trouble accessing that, but not everyone, so we can't figure out why. So yes, and you can always follow up after the meeting today, and we'll share that with you. So on behalf of the whole RePicture summer team, I would like to welcome you to the final event of our 6-week STEM Career Accelerator. I'm Elisa, and I'm one of the co-founders of RePicture, along with Lynn Mayo. We are very blessed to have Jerry Norman as a returning peer mentor this year and our panel moderator for the summer, as well as Jody Russell, our returning director of student success, who was also with us last year, as well as 4 amazing peer mentors, Jim Song, Asai Moreno, Lindsay Tatsumi, and Michael Fisher-Hagens. Together, this team and a few others working behind the scene has made our summer a success. So today, I promise we will get into the presentations. I know you are all here to see very soon. To give you all some context for the wonderful presentations you are all about to hear, I want to start by telling you a little bit about us and our Career Accelerator, so you have some context going into those presentations. And then we're going to recognize all of the award winners for our contest this summer. And finally, I'll go over a little bit of info and logistics for the breakout rooms, introduce our judges, and then we'll move into those breakout rooms to see the student presentations. So I actually want to kick off today by sharing the exciting news that this program that you are all now a part of is also now an award-winning program. We are this year's winner of the Women in Engineering Proactive Network Breakthrough Award, joining past winners that include companies like IBM and AT&T. So we are thrilled for this recognition of us and our mission to help students succeed in STEM. So although there are so many people that helped make this summer possible, I want to give a special shout out to 2 people who really helped get this summer's program started. Jody, who really helped get us out there and sharing with our community our story and what we're doing. And Natalie, who is instrumental in introducing us to Ashraf and helping to form our relationship with CSI, who is our lead sponsor for the summer. So we want to thank CSI, Computers and Structures, for making this summer's program possible and enabling us to offer it free to so many students from underrepresented backgrounds and to our partner organizations. We also want to give a special thank you to the National Education Equity Lab. I know a few of you are here today. They were a key partner in helping make our 2022 program possible as well. And we were lucky to have several of their students again this year, including one that you will hear from today. I would also like to thank Mose, who has been instrumental in helping connect our students with some incredible speakers this year. Mose is a great supporter of youth and of uplifting the next generation, and he helped introduce our students to Taj Eldridge on the topic of climate change, Jessica Burnett on digital health, Neve Donnelly and Hussein Sabag on robotics, Michelle Sika, who brought semiconductors to life for us, and Matthew Graysick on aviation. So some of them are here today, so welcome back, and we hope you enjoy meeting some of the students that you helped inspire this summer. So many of you who are here today know a lot about RePicture, and some of you are new to RePicture. So I want to share briefly with you about RePicture and about our very special and unique and growing community. So RePicture is a project-based community platform where students learn about people and organizations in the STEM world through actual real-world projects that are having a meaningful impact in the world all around us. So once they discover a project, they actively learn about it through the people and the organizations behind it. And in the process, they grow their STEM networks, make connections, and shape their future in STEM. Our growing STEM community is the reason our program has been so successful these past few years. And we're so proud to say that we've now had over 400 profiles created. I think it might be more like 500 now. We've worked with over 80 STEM mentors. Again, that might also be an underestimate by now, who have helped to provide over 250 hours of coaching to our students. And we've also been able to work with students from so many different backgrounds, including this year's amazing group of future STEM leaders. And because you've taken the time to join us here today, you're helping to make this community even stronger. So to give you a little sense of what we've done this summer, this is our calendar of events. RePicture, the RePicture STEM Career Accelerator is our flagship program where students are provided with one-on-one career coaching, mentorship, professional skills building, and the tools to create a personal portfolio of project research that will help them unlock opportunities and thrive in the world of STEM. So for the past 6 weeks, students have attended workshops while exploring different STEM careers. Each week they've completed assignments related to the skills we worked on that week, and they've entered their work into contests. Their presentations today are part of the last assignment of the summer. Today is our last day. They are giving 5-minute presentations on a STEM project that they chose and researched and published and added to their RePicture portfolios this summer. And with that, we're going to actually turn over to our awards ceremony. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, each week we have contests, and we've had a ton of fantastic entries. It was often very hard to pick the winners. I would like to present the winners, though, of our 2022 program contests. And I'll go through everyone pretty quickly today, but I encourage you all to go to RePicture and learn more about these amazing students and the projects they researched this summer. So they've really done an incredible job, and their projects are very interesting. One very special thing you will find on RePicture is what the students have done is they've taken sometimes these very complex projects. STEM professionals don't always take the time to explain what they do to the greater world, and they've really translated that, and they're helping to tell the story of STEM in a way that really anybody can understand. So I definitely encourage you to check them out. And with that, we'll go through the winners. So best written profile, we have Joshua, Guadalupe, and Madeline. For most inspirational profile, Julian, Jasmine, and Pernille. Best project you worked on, Julian, Averil, and Brenda. Best written reflections on a project you worked on, Pernille, Averil, and Brenda. Best interest project from an ambassador, one of our returning students, Hannah. Best interest project, Amber, Chloe, Catherine, and Joshua. Best written reflections on an interest project, Shanita, Catherine, Joshua. Best climate resilience project, Akib. Best digital health project, Averil. Best robotics project, Srinitha. Best aviation project and people's choice for our week 3, Brenda. Best project in an other category, Julian. Best team project in week 3, Neha, Jasmine, and Melissa. Best overall project in week 3, Anna. Best project based on an interview with a STEM professional, Amber, Chloe, and Kuzi. People's Choice for week 4, Julian. And finally, we have our best team project in week 5, Jasmine, Neha, Aaron, and Melissa. And you'll be hearing from this team actually today. Oh. So congratulations again to all of our winners this year. They've done an amazing job. And again, I'm really encouraged you to go and check out their profiles on RePicture. So congratulations. And finally, I want to recognize all of the students that participated in the program this year. We again, for the 3rd summer, had participants from all over the US and the world. So we'll drop a link in the chat to, actually we have a 2022 program page and where you can find all of our students and learn more about them and the projects that they worked on this summer. And you all can be part of that project page as well, the 2022 page. Everyone that provides feedback to our students today will be added to that page as program mentors. So we will always be connected by coming together here today. And now what we've all been waiting for, we are going to move on to the presentations. I'll go over just a few logistics first and welcome our judges. To give you a little bit of background, the students have chosen their STEM projects and they've researched, like I mentioned earlier, and published articles about them on RePicture. So after today, you'll be able to read more about their project as well as watch their presentations again on their RePicture project page, including those presentations and those students that actually chose to do their final presentation with a video instead of presenting live today. Today, our students are also competing for our final contest of the year, Best Live Presentation. And presentations will be about 5 minutes, plus or minus a little bit, and then 8 minutes for teams. After that, we'll have a few minutes of Q&A. Questions are highly encouraged. Our students love to hear your questions, and we have some very interesting topics today, so I'm sure you will have lots of questions for them. During that time, you will also have an opportunity to provide feedback. Feedback is also very welcome. The students really get a lot out of that feedback. So we'll give a link to the feedback forms in the breakout rooms. And you can also find a link to those feedback forms in the program for today that we shared with you earlier in this presentation. So today's student presentations will be judged on visuals, stage presence, and clarity of presentation. And you'll see all of that in the feedback form itself. You can also, if you'd like, just email us your feedback. You don't have to use the form if you're not able to access it for whatever reason, or use it with the device that you're on. You can always just email us your feedback as well. And last but certainly not least, before we go into the breakout rooms, I want to welcome our judges today. Thank you so much for supporting our students. We will introduce all of you just a moment when we go into our breakout rooms. And with that, Asai has assigned us all to breakout rooms. So we'll move over there now. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us for today. We really look forward to sharing your feedback with the students and to following up after today to let you know who the winners are of our final contest. So bye for now, everyone, and see some of you in just a moment.
And the judges will be scoring the student presentations to determine the contest winner for best live presentation. And if anyone in the audience is interested in providing feedback as well, you'll have the opportunity to do so, and we'll be putting the link for feedback in the chat in just a moment. Each student will be giving a 5-minute presentation. We'll then have a couple minutes available for Q&A as the judges complete their scoring. Students love to receive questions about their presentation. You can put your question in the chat or unmute yourself and ask away. With that, let's get started with our first student presentations. Up first is Pranil Shah. Pranil Shah is a rising high school sophomore interested in biochemistry and material science. Pranil wants others to know that he is both a sports addict and a nerdy scientist at the same time. The floor is open to you, Pranil.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
We can see it.
All right. So, hello, my name is Praneel Shah, and today I'll be presenting a sustainable and green hydrogen production method that relies on thermochemical processes. Before I present this new innovative system for hydrogen production, I'd like to slow down and talk about how hydrogen is produced today. Then I'll talk about how the system works and compare it to how hydrogen is produced today and see if it's environmentally friendly and also friendly to someone's bank account. So there are 3 different types of hydrogen that's produced today: gray, blue, and green. Gray hydrogen is produced from a method known as steam methane reforming, which combines steam and methane at high temperatures and pressures to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen. This process produces 10 kilograms of carbon dioxide for every kilogram of hydrogen, which makes it a promoter of global warming. We also have blue hydrogen, which uses the same process of steam methane reforming, except it captures this carbon dioxide and stores it underground, which makes it more environmentally friendly and more sustainable. Finally, we have green hydrogen, which is made from electrolysis, which uses electricity to split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. This process is also carbon neutral, but it's expensive as it uses rare earth metals such as platinum for the reaction to occur. So now I present to you this new thermochemical process, which starts off with 3 compounds: iodine, sulfur dioxide, and water. When these 3 compounds are heated to 120 degrees Celsius, it will produce hydrogen iodide and sulfuric acid. These 2 compounds will be separated in 2 different chambers. The hydrogen iodide at 400 degrees Celsius will decompose to hydrogen and iodide. The sulfuric acid at 900 degrees Celsius will decompose to sulfur dioxide, oxygen, and water. As you can see, we have some of the products of these 2 reactions on top as the reactants here on the bottom. So we would actually like to isolate the iodine, sulfur dioxide, and water to be present in this initial chamber. So this reaction can be a self-sustaining loop. And we want to isolate the hydrogen, which is one of the products of our reaction. Now that we are taking hydrogen and oxygen out of the reaction, we need to put something in. Therefore, the reaction can remain balanced, and that's going to be clean water. So as you can see, we use a lot of heat in this reaction, as each chamber needs a lot of heat for the reaction to keep going. And there's 2 ways we can do this. One is using waste heat, as we can use the thermal energy emitted by the sun to heat the system during the day. And during the night, we can store that thermal energy in a form of a heat battery by using a material with a high heat capacity to store all that heat. Another way is to use green renewable energy, as we can convert that into thermal energy and use that to run our system. So here's the final comparison. The thermochemical hydrogen production system has no carbon emissions that's produced. It's a much cheaper system, as we only need water to maintain it consistently. And though it has a lower efficiency at 57% compared to steam methane reforming with 65% and electrolysis with 80%, it's able to produce more hydrogen at a much cheaper cost, making it a lot more feasible for our modern day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Praneel, for your fantastic presentation. So now we're going to be going into Q&A. So anyone is free to either raise their hand and ask a question verbally or to type it in the chat and we'll get to it. I see Anna. You want to go first?
I was wondering, what kind of waste, I guess, is expected out of, like, because you said it was only kind of it was not, like, a lot of the material was reused into process again, but you also said it wasn't incredibly efficient at the end, I guess.
It had an efficiency of 57%, which is less than other processes. However, since it's a lot cheaper, it's able to produce more hydrogen per dollar, or per dollar, which, if that makes sense, which makes it more feasible.
So I guess, like, oh, well, I don't know. It's just what waste products come out of this? Do you know, if any?
The byproducts of this reaction include hydrogen and oxygen. The
Okay, so
hydrogen,
that's it. Nothing else.
yeah.
Awesome.
So we have a question from Mostly London in the chat, and his question is, what is the current distribution of the type of hydrogen?
So majority of the plants in the United States are gray hydrogen plants, and majority of them are switching to blue hydrogen, which is trying to implement carbon capture and carbon storage technology. And also in other countries, like Europe, they're also switching more into electrolysis, which is green hydrogen production.
Fantastic. Another question from the chat by Brian McGee is, have you calculated how much electricity is used, as that might contribute to global warming?
So we would need, for this reaction, let's see, we will need a majority of it would need to be renewable energy. That's the only way that it might have a limited effect on global warming. Hydropower or solar energy are two good sources of renewable energy. For the exact amount, no, I have not calculated.
Another question from the chat by Leigh Kleinberg is, which companies are pursuing this technology?
The thing is, it's not produced by any companies yet. It's still in the research phase of many scientists, and they're still trying to see if there's more ways to have more different combinations. Like instead of sulfur and iodine, you could use magnesium or chloride or certain other elements instead.
Tuisha Thote, do you have a question?
Yeah, you were talking about how the chambers would need to be heated to huge amounts, like 400 degrees Celsius, 900 degrees Celsius. I was wondering, do you know the ways that the heat is insulated, or is heat also a waste product of this reaction?
So there's no 100% way to, there's always going to be heat loss in the reaction no matter how much you insulate it, but you can always insulate it to a point where the heat loss is limited. So part of it is the better the insulator, the more efficient the reaction can be, which means more heat can be used in the reaction.
I have a question. What is the mechanism for continuing this process? It seems like you were doing all the separation stuff, but how do you sustain that? When you get that separation, aren't there mechanisms that have to be put into place so that it goes back into the original makeup of what you're trying to perform?
Yeah, so majority in this, yes, there will need to be certain mechanisms that will separate the gases from the solids or the solids from the liquids. That's what makes it somewhat a little bit complicated. What I had underlined was just the simple process, and that made it a little bit easier to understand. That was kind of my point.
Okay, and I'm not trying to get so when you go through all that, when you consider the cost efficiency and all that, is that part of that equation?
Yes, because for things like electrolysis, it uses platinum and a lot of rare earth metals, and those are still extremely expensive. So there was a paper that talked about the price of all of that, and it still was lower than many electrolysis and gray hydrogen plants.
Okay, and last question by Anna.
Okay, cool. I don't know if we have another time to ask more questions, but it just occurred to me, for this kind of reaction, since you're saying that like it's mostly the materials just like return to their starting form. So is it just basically like I don't know, a one-pot reaction? That's a technical term. I shouldn't say that. Is it a kind of reaction where you can just like leave it and you're just getting the gas products off of it, and like the liquids and solids could just be kept in the chamber to just continually?
If the proper mechanisms are present to separate the products and a constant heat source is there, you can leave the reaction and you'll get a constant source of hydrogen.
Cool. All right.
Thank you so much again, Pernille, for your fantastic presentation, and thank you everybody for your fantastic questions. So next up, we'll have Tuisha Thote. Tuisha is a student in the middle college high school who loves neurobiology and mathematics. She also has a small passion for graphic design. She's part of the Math, Engineering, and Science Achievement, or MESA program, and also edits the yearbook at school. Twasha, you're up next.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
We can see it.
All right, perfect. Hello, my name is Twisha Thode, and today I will be presenting about stem cells and neurodegenerative disease. There we go. So here's a brief table of contents. I will first be introducing stem cells, then neurodegenerative diseases, and then talking about stem cell therapies for these kinds of diseases. So in an introduction to stem cells, questions answered include, what are stem cells? Where do they come from? And what do they do? Stem cells are the body's, quote, starting materials. They are the original or progenitor cells, which can specialize into various types of cells in our bodies, as shown at left, including lung cells, brain cells, and a lot of others. Now, stem cells have three main sources: the embryos, the adults, and the umbilical cord. The ones from embryos can differentiate or specialize the most, while the ones from adults have the least differentiation potential. Now, why are stem cells important? There are three main reasons. One, watching them specialize can tell scientists about how diseases can progress. Two, they can be used to generate new healthy cells to cure diseases like spinal cord injuries, type 1 diabetes, and more. And three, scientists can test effectiveness of drugs in clinical trials on stem cells before testing in humans. Now, onto neurodegenerative diseases. Questions answered here include, what are neurodegenerative diseases, how do they affect the brain, and what treatment options are out there? Now, neurodegenerative diseases are conditions that occur because of the declining function of neural cells. These can include many diseases that are common but not normal when it comes to aging, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. How these affect the brain? Now, neurodegenerative diseases can affect many different types of cells in the brain and many different areas of the brain, resulting in a huge variety of symptoms. Common symptoms of these kinds of diseases include the following: loss of motor control, memory loss or dementia, anxiety, and agitation or irritability. What treatment options are out there? Currently, there are no authorized therapies for treatment, but methods in clinical trials now include drug-based treatments such as levodopa and carbidopa for Parkinson's, and stem cell therapies for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and many others. If these get approved, they are a huge step compared to current symptomatic treatment methods. Now, stem cell therapies for neurodegenerative diseases. Questions answered include, is there a way to cure these debilitating diseases, and what kinds of cells could be used? Now, scientists may be able to inject stem cells into diseased organs in the body, curing diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and many more. Stem cells can have varied effects depending on which type you use. Mesenchymal stem cells, or MSCs, can reduce inflammation and scarring, while induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs, can replace damaged cells to repair tissues. Now, how does stem cell treatment differ from other methods? While current treatment methods can offer symptomatic management, stem cell therapies really open the door to a cure for many different types of debilitating diseases that people used to just have to live with. It can also be better than organ transplantation if stem cells originate from the patient, because this can lead to a lowered risk of immune rejection and could possibly lower the need for immunosuppressants. Here are some sources I used. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Thank you for your fantastic presentation, Twisha. So now we're moving on to the Q&A. So feel free to ask your questions, everybody.
Yeah, hi, this is Len. Very interesting presentation. I'm wondering what made you interested in this topic? Is this something that you want to go into? Is this a field that you're interested in? Just how did this inspire you?
Yeah, I really am interested in the sort of neurobiology and stem cell side of things. My dad is also actually in biotechnology right now. So kind of combining my interests of neurology and stem cells led me to this topic.
We have a question in the chat from Jack Podell, and his question is, what are the challenges for this type of therapy?
Right, so a couple of challenges include harvesting the cells from the patient themselves. Then if they're an adult, you would have to bring them back to an embryonic state, or as I mentioned, induce pluripotency, so then they can differentiate and grow to repair tissues. Also, growing these cells in the lab require specific conditions, so that is also kind of difficult to imitate. Hopefully that answers your question. Anna?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you know how they, I guess not like regress the cell, but make a non-stem cell into a stem cell?
I don't exactly know the mechanics of how they induce pluripotency, but if you want me to, I can definitely look it up for you.
I don't know, just what exactly, like how exactly, I don't know, is it spelled? I could look it up, but
Oh, I can put it in the chat.
thanks. Yeah.
I see another question in the chat by Leigh Kleinberg, and her question is, are there clinical trials in progress?
As of now, I saw that there were a couple of clinical trials, one to cure Alzheimer's, another to cure Parkinson's, and I saw another one to cure heart disease. So those are the couple that I know.
Another question from the chat by Lisa is, did you have any aha moments during your research that surprised you?
I was kind of shocked to hear that people were actually using stem cells for curing diseases, because I'd never really known a treatment method for them. I had just kind of heard about them and thought, oh, well, these diseases are really bad, but they are things that people just kind of live with for now. So it's really great to see that one day we could have the cure.
Any other questions for Twisha? I just had a real quick question for you, Twisha. So do you see yourself pursuing a career in, relating to the topic of stem cells by chance?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to be more on the research and clinical trials side, where I could possibly investigate how stem cells can be used in the brain to treat these kinds of diseases. I'd love to be there.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much, Twisha. Oh, looks like there's one more question from the chat by Brian McGee. There are clinics that offer stem cell treatments, but the FDA says some of them could be dangerous. Do you know what these dangers are?
I don't know a lot about that, but one danger that I could see is if you are taking the cells from another patient instead of from the patient themselves, then you could have a similar kind of immune rejection response as organ transplantation, which may lead to a patient needing immunosuppressants in order for their body to not reject.
Fantastic presentation and very interesting topic, Twisha. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Abdallah Awad. Abdallah is a 15-year-old high school graduate looking to pursue the field of aerospace engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology. Abdallah believes that the most important skill is to have a problem-solving mentality. More specifically, know how to break things down into very small pieces and build them back up to get a working machine and diagnosis framework. Abdallah, the floor is open to you. Abdallah, can you hear us?
I think you lost connection.
Yeah, I see him as a participant, but I don't see him on here. So maybe we can go on. Yeah, we just lost his connection. So maybe go on to the next one and come back to him.
All right. So up next is Anna Jed. Anna Jed is a graduate from Reed College in chemistry with an interest in making science accessible to all. Anna is located in Oakland, California, and is interested in geology, drawing, and jewelry making. The floor is open to you, Anna.
Or I don't know, Abdallah just came back if you want to.
My sincerest apologies. I had some technical issues.
No problem. Are you able to show your presentation, Abdallah?
Yes, just a second.
Okay.
Okay, is this more audible?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Abdullah Awad, and today I'll be doing my project on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner and how it revolutionized commercial aircraft development technologies. My project is called The Journey to the Dreamliner. So to start about how this all began, the dream, if you would, the 787 was designed to be the successor to the Boeing 747 in a time where technology was improving and Boeing needed better airplanes. The idea for a successor to the 747 originated in 2001, at least officially announced, with the main candidates being the 747X, a more efficient version of the 747, and the Sonic Cruiser, a faster version that ran at the same gas efficiency. However, as a result of 9/11, aircraft fuel prices skyrocketed, and every company was just more interested in having a big plane that used as little gas as possible to move people forward. That's when the 787 was announced to be developed in the year 2003. So, what the things that made the 787 stand apart from any other plane in Boeing's line at the time is a carbon fiber body, which allowed for a more lighter plane that could be made larger, which would increase fuel efficiency. And it also made it for more flexible wings that could increase speed, aerodynamics, turning radius, all of that. So the way the body was made is there's a carbon fiber base held together with a plastic resin that's baked in a customized oven. If you look at the picture down there with the A350 fuselage, which is the main competitor to the 787, and it was made a little bit earlier, but has the same core principles behind it. The fuselage is baked into sections, and then there's the oven back there, as well as some other parts of the wings and tail are made in the same manufacturing process. Titanium is made for the frame, in contrast to the traditional aluminum body, and that's a result of galvanic oxidation that occurs between aluminum and carbon fiber, which I'll go over a little bit later. Basically, they needed to use titanium for a durable frame. And the traditional way to make titanium parts was to have a block and cut it up. But this leads to a lot of waste, which cost Boeing a lot of money. So they attempted printing by contracting Norse Titanium, a specialized titanium machinist company. They initially tried powder printing, but this left too many imperfections in the metal. So they went with wire printing, where they would line up a bunch of wires of titanium together and fuse them into the part they need, and then shape it down via laser grinding, standard CNC grinding, and other methods, which cut down waste by 25 to 50%. Going into the material maintenance, which goes back to our galvanic oxidation problem we had earlier. To summarize this in a way that's easy to swallow, atoms naturally incline to different types of charges, be it negative or positive. If you look at this table up here, aluminum alloys are in the up to the 1.1 negative voltage percentage, as opposed to titanium, which is more in the 0.2. And carbon fiber is somewhere close to this range. However, I could not find any tables that had carbon fiber. This is just strictly for metals. So what would happen is when you put carbon fiber with aluminum, because of the great voltage difference in between the atoms, they would lightly shock each other and build up heat on a microscopic level, make cracks, and by taking off the layer protection on aluminum, it begins to oxidize, which when you're going almost Mach 1 in the middle of the sky, that amount of pressure on any small imperfection could end up snapping a whole wing off or a tail wing, etc. Another small thing that was done for material maintenance is, since carbon fiber is not conductive like traditional aluminum-bodied airplanes, Boeing put metal rivets in with caps on them that would conduct any electricity from lightning strikes and run them through a copper lining that was above the titanium frame but under the carbon fiber body. Gas tanks are also filled with nitrogen gas to prevent combustion as a result of a spark in case lightning is strong enough to spark on the body. The cap on top of the rivets and the copper lining were later removed for cost reasons, but otherwise the Boeing 787 maintains all these technologies. These are the sources I used for this project, and that's all I have to present. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you for your fantastic presentation, Abdallah. The floor is now open to Q&A.
Yes, I have a question. And I'm just going right into your title, Journey to the Dreamliner. So what was your main objective? What did you really want us to know I had a certain idea in my head initially, but he was just going to talk about this Dreamliner. What exactly does that title mean, or is that?
Well, my goal with this project was for me and for the audience. The Boeing 787 was the US's, at least for commercial and commercially used airlines, not military ones, was the US's bounce to the future of aerospace technology. As I showed earlier, their competitors, the Airbus 350, but they mainly serve the Middle East. That's what their main audience is, especially if you look at a lot of accidents that happen in Egypt and other ones that tend to happen with A350s. But the US, Boeing makes over 40% of their profit from there. And this, as I showed, this plane involved a lot of new technologies. It showed what aerospace engineering is really about, like the full potential. And I thought it would be good for me to figure it out to just see, what is the final goal of this, a career field. And the Boeing 787 was a great example to show how technologies can snap just like that, and a bunch of creative minds from all over the world could come together to make a brand new technology that was way more efficient.
So it sounds like the carbon and the titanium, which is what you emphasize the most, are those the two key metals or two key materials that's going to require to take this Dreamliner where they wanted to go?
Yes, sir, because as I mentioned earlier, carbon fiber made it lighter, which allowed for more passenger movement with less gasoline usage. And titanium was an innovative solution to the problem they had with galvanic oxidation using an aluminum body like traditional planes had.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I'm looking at the chat here. Shaquille Dunbar is asking what was the most shocking discovery. I think the most shocking discovery I found during my research is just the custom oven that they had to make for baking the plastic resin on the carbon fiber. The picture really doesn't do it justice, and I couldn't find any license under the Creative Commons, but if you've seen an airplane in real life, that the whole fuselage, and they cut up into about 4 sections. And they had to make something so large that was enough to bake that at really high temperatures to get that done. And it was just an amazing piece of tech. But, the project's about the airplane, not the oven, so I didn't go too much into it. Jack Podell asked about the traveler experience change from the previous planes. Well, on top of a larger size, which allowed for, better spaced seats or a more roomy cabin, it also, they had some basic technology updates with the digital revolution coming in the year of 2000s, better TVs. Being a Dreamliner, it had some nicer seats. And one thing I couldn't go over due to time constraints was the windows were allowed to be more wider due to the flexibility of carbon fiber, which could take more compressive pressure without cracking like aluminum would, which would lead to a material imperfection that would snap parts, as we've seen time and time again with past airline accidents. To answer Mosey London's question about my career interest, I'm interested in mechanics as a whole, but I thought to myself, and I've only worked on automotive and diesel mechanics so far, tractors, cars, whatnot, even heavy equipment. But I want to see what the end goal is. If I'm going to be working my whole life, I might as well reach the peak of that career field, and the highest form of mechanics was aerospace. But I'm more interested in staying in the skies, as I'd like to perfect our technologies on Earth before we start doing space technologies, which is why I took the more aeronautical path. And the 787 was a great thing to study that shows the jump from the past to the future. To answer Lisa's question on how do I see this technology being used outside of aerospace, there are plenty of places, actually. I had an internship at a CNC mill, and having that new titanium printing technology will allow for companies to make much more durable and unique technologies while having cheaper costs. And as I mentioned earlier, the initial problem with the CNC machining is traditionally you'd have, let's say, a block of aluminum, and you start carving at it, but that would waste so much. And on a metal that's as heavy as titanium, which is harder to transport in bigger quantities and expensive, that's just a firewall for big and small businesses alike. So improving something like that allows for just better industrial efficiency and maintenance. And studying galvanic oxidation, which I've come to find is actually still being studied. It's not fully understood, but the general idea is gotten. Will help us in material science and making better materials. And, you know, knowing the uses of carbon fiber, we can further improve not just aerospace technologies. Maybe we can have a flying car one day that has the same type of materials. Having a better understanding of that material and having a practical application for it allows room for more creativity without needing that huge busted budget to learn everything yourself and years of research. Those are all the ones I see in the chat. If anybody wants to ask me over call, I'm listening. If we stop some time.
In the interest of time, I think we'll be moving on. Thank you so much, Abdallah, for your really, really fantastic presentation on aviation and the future of aviation. So up next is Anna Jed. Anna is a graduate from Reed College in chemistry with an interest in making science accessible to all. Anna is located in Oakland, California, and is interested in geology, drawing, and jewelry making. Anna, the floor is open to you.
All right. Cool. So y'all can see that? It's all good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, we're
All right.
seeing your notes.
Oop. Hold on. Let's see. Oop. Let's try this. Sorry. How's that?
Perfect.
All right. So, hi. As I said, I'm Anna Jed. And I'll be talking with you today about what the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover is doing in its search for life, and why, when looking for life on other planets, it's important to have a good understanding of that planet's geologic history. So what we'll be covering is looking for chemical elements in the planet's soil, the kinds of rocks and erosion in the area, and the magnetic history of the rocks present on the planet. I'll be talking with you about this because I believe space and Mars are amazing, and this is the first, And this is the first time that we'll be going up, being able to bring back Martian rock samples to Earth, and I think that's very cool. And also because I think being able to use chemistry and geology to paint a better picture of what's happened to life on other planets like 1 million years ago is really fascinating. I'm sorry, I think I've lost. Oh, there we are. Okay, so looking at the chemicals in the soil. In 2011, this image of the Jezero crater, which was once thought to have been a crater lake, was captured by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. An analysis by instruments on board the orbiter showed the presence of clays and carbonates in the Martian soil, which are two items whose presence on Earth are indicators of often water and possible life. This because carbonate functional groups form naturally when carbon dioxide comes in contact with water and combines with other elements such as calcium to make carbonate molecules, which are used by lots of marine organisms to build their shells, and thus being water and life being present in that area. It was this examination of chemicals in the soil of Mars, along with other similar finds elsewhere on the planet, that brought this sort of hope for finding more signs of Martian water and microorganisms by taking a closer look at the soil. It's also why ultimately the Jezero Crater Delta Formation was chosen for closer examination by the Mars 2020 rover mission. So now, looking at the types of rocks they found and their conditions, once the rover was actually on Mars, the scientists thought that they would be finding sedimentary rocks in the crater, due to that being the most common form that carbonate rocks take on Earth, as well as pictures that had previously been taken that seemed to show the sort of distinct layering in the rocks, which is a common feature for sedimentary structures. However, once they got there, much to everybody's surprise, it was found that the ground around the delta was instead made of igneous rock. The stratification or layering was determined to have come from differences in the mineral crystals formed during the lava's cooling. Recently, one of these minerals, olivine, has been discovered or is being discussed as being a mineral essential to the emergence of life. So its presence here is also a positive indicator of the area once having been able to support life as well. The types of minerals we see and where we see them are all clues to understanding Mars's formation and the possible life that could have lived there. And so we need to understand the planet itself and how it was put together to understand how life once could have been supported. Another amazing thing to keep in mind is that igneous rocks can also be dated by measuring the elemental radioactive decay. This can give us a better picture of the timeline of the geologic history, which in turn can help us date any signs of life that we do find and help us figure out what may have actually happened to it. Also, as far as erosion goes in this sort of area, these igneous rocks were found to have signs of salt weathering in them, with holes and divots in their surface lined with salt residue, similar to those found on Earth. This is both a sign of water's past presence in this area, as well as it being an area high in mineral content and likely friendly to life as well. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is that another aspect of what the rover is attempting to record while up there is changes in the strength of Mars's magnetic field to see if it once might have been able to have a better chance of holding a thicker, more life-supporting atmosphere to Mars's surface. With paleomagnetism, we can use rocks to determine the magnetism induced by the planet's magnetic field at the time of that rock's formation by looking at the orientation of iron in the rock, and therefore the strength of the planet's magnetic field at that time. Mars currently has no planetary magnetic field, only patches formed from magnetic mineral deposits in the crust. Indications of changes in the magnetic field, along with dating the rocks, can help us narrow down when Mars may have lost its atmosphere altogether, which is, important to understand for life. So knowing this and the planet's history can also help us paint a clear picture of when or what actually may have eventually happened to any evidence of life on Mars that we do find. So being able to understand a soil's chemical makeup and the kinds of rocks present and the dates of different geologic layers, as well as their conditions and the magnetic history of the area, are all things that can be understood geologically about a planet and provide us with context about an area's conditions and its life-supporting capabilities before we ever actually find a fossil or preserved organism. And geology can be important to understanding all parts of the planet history, and I think that's something very important to understand. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your fantastic presentation, Anna. Now the floor is open to Q&A.
Yeah.
And it appears we have the first question from Jack Podell. And his question is, how long until Earth becomes like Mars?
Well, that's more of a question of if anything happens to our iron. So Earth has like an iron core, and it's thought that Mars did as well, and something happened to it. It stopped like spinning or functioning the same way. And that's why the atmosphere got dropped. Or I guess it just wasn't held strong enough so that the sun, the radiation was able to just strip it off the planet. And so it's more a question of if that happens to Earth, like if our core stops spinning and, being hot and, creating all that geologic movement that it does and creating a magnetic field, if that stops, that's when Earth would be in trouble. It would lose all its atmosphere and, become like Mars. So far, probably not, unless something very drastic happens. I'm sorry, I said, so we have nothing to worry about. Yeah, we probably not for a while, unless, I don't know, we drill far enough down into the Earth and mess with the core somehow. But we've never gotten anywhere close to like past the mantle layer, so we're probably fine.
I have a question, and this is such an interesting topic, and I think the fact that there's so many different mechanisms they could use to figure out, whether there was at one time life. In that research you've done, does anyone ever like postulate they think there was or there wasn't? Like, are people,
Yeah.
And I know they're still collecting information, but do people think that they know their answer or guessing their answer?
It's the reason we're looking up there at all for microorganisms is because of those scans that we've taken that are not even micro, just, it's that we've taken scans of the surface, and we think we've seen the kinds of chemicals that are present, at least on Earth, when life was there, at least like in our oceans or in lakes and stuff. So we're like, there was probably water, and there's probably life in that water. So if we can look at the dirt, we can probably find the like remains of that life. And that's just kind of what we're looking for. So we're pretty sure that there probably is life, or there was life there, but now we just got to prove it.
I had a question in regards to the pictures that you're using where, they show Mars on the surface. Do you know by chance how long it takes for, I assume it's like a rover or some sort of like robot that's taking the pictures to beam it over from Mars back to Earth?
Oh, I don't know actually the exact time frame of that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it's probably not like an incredibly long time. They're keeping like a decent amount of like update. They can they're getting a lot of signals back and forth relatively quickly to move stuff around and tell the rover to do things and whatnot. Oh yeah, the rovers have the rovers begun the excavation? Yeah, they've began taking core samples, which is they just drill down and they pull out like a section of rock. I think it was in last year in August, I believe, they reached the edge of the delta. They've been exploring the floor around the delta before that, so taking those igneous rock samples. But yeah, it was actually just earlier this month, they were able to take their first successful core sample of the delta. So there's our first sample, and they're hoping for about to get about 30 of those by sometime in 2030, where it'll meet up with another rover, or not a rover, but like a spacecraft, to collect those samples and bring them back to Earth. So we're somewhere on that timetable. We're getting there. How's this investigation impacting? On what I want to do next? I mean, it's kind of all been a mix of like, so I'm a chemistry major, but it was one of my professors who taught a spite class about geology because the school wasn't funding him for it. And he was like, I want to know about geology and I want my kids to know about geology. And so he taught a class about that. And I guess it was kind of that, along with like I've always kind of thought space was fascinating as, a subject of interest. And so I guess it would be nice if I could do some sort of like space geology chemistry study. Would be very cool, or to figure out how to get myself, job at NASA to be one of those guys in the labs looking through the dirt and chemically analyzing that stuff for life science. I think that'd be very cool. Take that I get, I think that would be a very fun job. But yeah.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Anna, and thank you so much for your Q&A. Thank you again to all our presenters, and thank you once more again to all our judges for being here. Thank you to everybody for being here, and that concludes our presentations. Let's give it a round for everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jim.
That concludes our presentations, and thank you again, everybody, and thank you. Great job to all our presenters.
Yeah, and we will be posting the videos online eventually, so you'll be able to watch these as well as the ones from the other breakouts once those get posted.